if hiking is a sentence, then forest therapy is the comma in the middle.
I love
it's
that.
the comma that
Yeah.
asks you to pause in the middle. Like, it's not about completing that journey, completing that sentence. It's about, okay, get to this place and I stop. And I pause and I see what's going to come up next.
A lot of people, if not all people in this city, find it very hard to stop and to pause. I think when they're able to stop, or they tend to find other things to stop themselves from thinking about work, they occupy themselves with something else.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a diversion. It's just a distraction. But to really stop, but I feel that people just don't have this ability to stop anymore. And a lot of mental health issues come from that.
There will be a point where you work through the grief and you will hit the joy.
Yes.
And when you get to that point, that joy feels very grounding. It's not that kind of euphoric joy. It's not the joy in the Inside Out movie. It's not that. It's a kind of joy that is like, I feel like I can open my heart.
Yeah. Aloha, dear friends.
I'm Vivian, a board-certified music therapist in Canada and US, faculty at Chulalongkorn University, and the current president of the World Federation of Music Therapy.
And I'm Jerome, a certified forest therapy guide, mindfulness yoga and sound healing practitioner, and mental health advocate. And together, we're the co-founders of Sacred Space Therapy and Wellness, and your hosts for our podcast, Echoes Among Trees, Reclaiming Our Inner Voice.
We hope you'll be able to take away something from our conversations about mental health and just about being human. Together, we hope to create a kinder world and to walk each other home. Thank you for listening.
I'm setting an intention.
Oh, great.
I'm setting an intention
Do
for
you want
this.
to lead us through this? Or
Oh
what?
my God! I was just gonna do it kind of privately.
Okay,
but
you can do your
it's just
private.
It'd be nice to do it together too. But
Yeah.
it's just a private moment of connecting with myself, and then also just setting an intention for this podcast to go really well, for us to all enjoy this process, and for this podcast to reach a wide audience and plant the seeds for more people falling in love with the forest and coming on to forest therapy walks, and let it spread with love to wide and far corners.
Oh, thank you for the
you.
wonderful intention setting, Amanda, which is a great way to introduce us to this podcast. Aloha, everybody. Welcome to podcast number 3 of Echoes Among Trees. And today we just had our guest do our intention setting. But let me go ahead and introduce her. She is the founder of Shinrin Yoku Hong Kong. She is a certified forest therapy guide for the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, and also the very first Asian-based ANFT trainer. She's also ICF certified. She's a friend, a mentor, a fellow guide, and a very awesome person. Let us welcome Amanda Yik.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming. And today, what we're going to be talking about on this episode is forest therapy.
Yeah.
And while I think connecting with Mother Nature is age old, forest therapy itself is not ancient. It was birthed in the 80s. So, but we'll allow Amanda to kind of talk us through a bit about that. While I'm at it, I'd like to actually bring us into liminality.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So let's listen to the sound of this. We can do some deep breath and then we can get started, yeah? Thank you. So Amanda, forest therapy. If you don't mind sharing with our viewers, our listeners, your story of how you came to the practice.
Yeah, I think it was back in 2016 or 17 now. So almost 9 years ago. I was actually just coming out of a 2 year long cancer treatment. And I've always been a nature lover. So I do hike a lot. I spend a lot of time in nature. I can't sit still, basically. I'm that kind of a person. But when I was, going through cancer treatment, my body, just cannot afford, right, for me to do too much activity, basically. So the only thing that I insisted on doing that would put me in touch with nature is to go across the road and sit at a park. A very urban park, it's very concrete, with a lot of like man-made features, like fountains and all that. But also there are a lot of beautiful trees, and it's also right by the sea. So I had the joy of connecting with both water and trees, and of course soil, and all the people who were enjoying that space too. So because my body was in such a weak state, it was actually even more obvious that every time I go sit at the park, I felt better. Like I felt like something is different. And, when you're spending so much time indoors, I think most people who've been through COVID now knows that when you spend so much time indoors, you become a little sluggish, right? And you just can't really pinpoint exactly what's wrong, but you just like, you don't feel like yourself. So when I was in that phase in my life, basically I spent most of my time at home, and except for that short period when I go sit at the park, that became the highlight of my day. And that really, I guess, planted a seed in me to explore, okay, I'm curious. I want to know what's happening. Why is it that I feel much better sitting across the road in a park compared to in the comfort of my own home, right? So when I came out the other side of cancer treatment, and I started to think about, okay, now I survived. Now what do I want to do? I was really holding that question for a long time. And I actually got a job offer to do something else, something that was much more aligned with what I used to do. But I really had this struggle internally of, should I really go back, or should I just stay open and do something different? And this part of my story, I haven't really shared that much, but I basically, I went into prayer. Like I prayed. I prayed for an indication of, okay, what do you want me to do now? And I really remember actually that I heard a message. And I can't really describe what the voice sounds like or anything. It's just a feeling, right? It's just a feeling. But then the feeling became quite specific. It was telling me that, yes, you can do this job if you want. You can do anything, really. But if you don't do this job, you can actually help more people. So I was really intrigued. I was like, wait, hold on a second. If I don't do this job, I have no idea what I can actually do. And you're saying I can help more people. Okay. I guess with that caveat of you can help more people, it's very hard for me then to take up that job offer, because it's almost like I'm rejecting that opportunity to help a lot more people, which just totally doesn't make sense, right? So I was like, okay, I'm not going to take that job offer. And then I'm just going to see what happens. And then, interestingly enough, I can't remember exactly how long, but not long after, I read an online magazine article, and there in that article, it talks about forest therapy. And that was the first time that I saw these two words put together. I know forest, I know therapy, but I didn't even know there's something called forest therapy. And then as I read more about it, I realized I felt like that was what I was actually doing innately, just such an organic part of my own, I guess, self-management when I was recovering from cancer, that, it's going out and spending time amongst trees and bird songs and the ocean is doing something to my body that I later realized is actually very therapeutic and definitely was a big part of my healing. So that is the kind of the story behind how I found out that there is an association of nature and forest therapy, and they're offering, trainings. And I dropped them an email, and I think it was Amos, the founder of the
Wow.
association, that responded. I was asking, do you have a guide in Hong Kong? Can I just do a walk? Because I really needed it for myself. And I think the response was, no, we don't have anyone in Asia, but we are coming to Australia to do a training a few months later. So I was like, I think I thought about it for like 5 seconds. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to apply.
That's it.
That's
Book
it.
the flight.
And then what's interesting is after I have applied, I realized that there are going to be guides in Hong Kong. Within the same year that I did my training, actually, I realized there were 3 other people who's doing or done the training. So I wasn't the first certified guide in Hong Kong, but what's crazy was we all started that journey in the same year, in 2017. So it's fascinating to me. So that's how it all began.
Wow. So 2017 was kind of the start for Hong Kong, and as well as you to start your journey.
Yeah. And many other people, I realized there's something about 2017.
I can't even remember what I did in 2017, but it seems kind of magical.
Yeah.
So now it's 2026, and since you started your journey, how have you seen your relationship change, or if it has changed since you just started your forest therapy journey?
I think it's very interesting. It's anything with nature is not linear, right? It's never just a straight line. So I think I started off feeling like just having a lot of questions in my head around what is this forest therapy thing really? I mean, I know that spending time in nature was good for me. But is it really a thing? And, I'm going to a training and, why am I going on this training? And, what am I going to do after this training? I didn't have a clear idea at all. So I felt like I started off a little bit dazed and confused, still coming out of my cancer journey. But then in the training itself, I really felt like because we have a group of, I think about 20 people in my cohort.
Wow.
And, seeing how, and of course the trainers and the training team, right? And just seeing how so many of us come together and have these profound experience in the forest, I cannot say that it's not real. It's just that I was able to witness other people's journey in that training as well. And I definitely felt like there is something that was just so deeply stirred inside that made me realize that for me, at least personally, there's no other way to heal in such a holistic way. It's almost from the inside out, because of now I guess I'm moving on to the next phase of my relationship of nature. I became so clear about the fact that we are a part of nature. And I really remember an indigenous elder saying that, we're not saving the earth. We are the earth saving herself. We are a part of the earth, so much so that without the earth, we're nothing, right? So that became so clear. And with the way that I was trained, I know that my role is to actually work with nature. Because nature is the partner, right? We say that the forest is the therapist and the guide opens the door. So I really like the fact that I'm not the therapist. I really like the fact that I am working with the therapist and just setting the scene for her, right? For nature, for the forest, for the land, for the ocean, whatever ecosystem we're working with, to really shine through as the healer. To kind of draw us into that remembering that we are a part of her. It's almost like mother, right? Telling you, hey, kid, you look a little lost. Why don't you come back? So that became, I guess, the next phase of my understanding of our relationship with nature, the healer, the therapist, and definitely very much the teacher. There's so many times when I felt lost when I'm holding questions that, no one can answer for me, and I don't know what the answer is. I take that question with me and go to my sit spot, my favorite place. So we have this practice called sit spot, basically a place in nature that we visit regularly, time after time, to build a relationship with that place, right? So I often took my questions to my sit spot. And sooner or later, I would either get really an answer, or I may not get an answer, but I would get a feeling of just relief and perspective, and then realize that whatever I thought was that big trouble that's bothering me, actually it isn't really that big a problem. I can let it go. I'm not bothered by that anymore. So that was just so freeing and so liberating and very reassuring. And now further down the journey, I'm doing more training. I'm supporting more people to become guides. Yeah. I'm also still guiding, of course, but in supporting others to become guides, I felt more like a pixie, like a little forest fairy. I felt even more so that I am a part of nature. And I'm helping to spread those little magic little sprinkle and potion on other people so that they come on board and become guides, and then they go out and open the door for other people. And that feeling of, wow, it's not just me guiding other people now, I'm helping others to become guides, and just seeing how that is spreading even further out. For me, it's super, super fulfilling. But also there's a part of me, and I say, Tinkerbells or, pixies and forest fairies because they are small. They're like small little beings in the forest, right? And I actually feel small. Like I feel like, because I'm not the teacher, like I'm not the guru. I don't go out and say, hey, listen to me. I'm going to teach you something. I'm saying, yes, I'm a trainer, but I'm going to support you to get your answers from the real deal, from the forest. So I feel like this little Tinkerbell flying around and just a little bit more playful and just, and as a trainer, I often ask more questions and give answers because that's how you actually inspire people to grow. Right? So I guess that's a journey I've been on, and yeah, and thank you for asking that because I haven't reflected on this last bit. And now that I think of myself as a little forest fairy, I'm really happy.
Maybe I'll address you as the forest fairy from now on. And it's a really inspiring story, at least for me, because you were the one that trained me you and Geeta were the ones that helped train me to become a forest therapy guide. And I also feel like you talking about the importance of realizing our place with nature is so important. I also feel that in my heart, that's something that if I could leave something with the people that I guide, it's that feeling of we are a part, we're not separate. But we've been talking a bit about forest therapy and your journey, but maybe for the people that are viewing, they might not actually know what we're talking about, but they're getting a sense of, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind sharing, like, what is forest therapy?
So to answer that question, I might just take a step back and talk about forest bathing. Yeah, because that might be a term that more and more people are seeing in like online and different articles or magazines. Forest bathing is a word that was coined by the Japanese in the 80s, and that's what you alluded to at the beginning, because of a rise in stress and stress-related problems especially in the urban population. So it was actually, forest bathing is a response to urban stress, to urbanization, to industrialization. And that's why when you said that the ancient people didn't need forest bathing or forest therapy, probably because they've always been in the forest. It's just that the recent generations have moved into the cities. So forest bathing is the Japanese way of returning to the countryside, right, to their forests. And Japan has a lot of beautiful forests, right? So they're really, really intelligent in that they use this very simple, sensory, and beautiful forest to attract people, especially those in the cities, to spend maybe a weekend, in the forest. And at the same time, they invested a lot of resources to do research. To actually substantiate the claim that you need to go back to the
Right.
forest, right? So it's
Right,
not
right,
just like, oh, to take some pretty photos and
Put it on your Instagram.
put it on Instagram. You're welcome to do that.
Yeah.
But also, that's not the only thing, right?
Yeah.
There's like real science behind how spending time in nature changes our body. And of course, right, even without without these scientific studies, we know that spending time in nature is good because our bodies, we are attuned to, if we think about the cycles of, the sun rising, the sun, setting, and the cycles of season, we are beings of nature, really. So, but the scientific study was very helpful in emphasizing the importance of doing that now, because knowing that it's one thing, right? Actually doing that, actually taking the step to go out the door, put your phone down, is very hard for us now, right? So that's how it started. And then, as with a lot of Japanese things, it became very successful in terms of marketing and getting the word out there. And decades later now, it's something that's practiced across the world. Forest therapy is also a term that was, I think, started in Japan very early on. And in Japan, it has a different meaning than what we are talking about right now, because in Japan, they do have doctors who take people into forests. Whereas for us, especially for us guides who are trained by the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, we talk about forest therapy in the sense of relational forest therapy. Because, yes, there are the scientific changes to our body, which maybe we can talk more about later. But what's also really important, and perhaps for some of us even more important, is how spending time in nature, when we actually do that with an intention of healing ourselves and also healing the earth that we live in, it's about rebuilding those broken relationships between us and what we call the more than human world. The more than human world, if that term is a bit too much for you, just consider that as human beings and the other living beings. But basically, we're talking about all living beings on this planet. We are all related to each other in so many different ways. We don't go about life these days thinking about all the relationships we have, right? It's easier for us to think about the human relationships. Like you think about your mother, your daughter, your friends, your colleagues. But then we're really inviting when we think about relational forest therapy is to expand that scope to include not just the human beings. If you have a pet, right? If you have a dog or a cat at home, it's very easy to include them because they feel like family members, right? But the truth is, if we see not just our flat as the home, but the whole of the earth is our home, then why wouldn't we consider all the other living beings as our kin, right? As our relatives? Maybe some are more distant, of course, and maybe we haven't spent much time with them anymore. But they are still very much related to us. And that is the part that relational forest therapy is inviting us to remember. And it may take some time because we have moved so far down the other side. So it's not like you go on a 2-hour forest therapy walk and then all of a sudden, ding, everything's connected again and you're always good and well. Maybe it doesn't happen that way. But that's an invitation, right? That's the beginning of maybe just realizing that when I tune into, so essentially what we do is we tune into our body and our senses, and we use those senses to just feel, to perceive what it's like for us to be in nature. And starting from there, to move also not just into the senses that connects us with the outside world, but also the senses that connects us within, and to marry the two together so that we know that there's more than the physical relaxation to it,
Yes.
which is very real.
Yes.
Which I have definitely had first, and you guys probably both have very personal experiences of just relaxation and resting and restoring energy, and just feeling overall better. Spending time or going for a walk in nature. But then also when we feel the inside, when we feel how we're feeling about these feelings, we realize that there are so much more to it, that there is a sense of connection. There's a sense of maybe belonging, a sense of just understanding that something bigger than us is actually holding all of us together. And that, I think, is the big potential that I feel like hasn't really been studied much, and maybe it's very hard to study. But I'm really looking forward, actually, to as we, as this practice keeps developing, that we see more studies or stories, maybe qualitative research into understanding how this relational aspect, this heart-based exploration, right, of our relationships can change us, can uplift us. Yeah, so that's a very long-winded answer to what is forest therapy.
Yeah.
But I hope that encompasses basically the fact that it's a very holistic experience. Sometimes when we think about the word therapy, we might think that, oh, it's for people who have a problem. It's for people who have they have anxiety or maybe depression, or they are feeling very stressed, or they are going through some life crisis. It's only for those people. But that's not actually true. It's therapeutic because all of us have been disconnected from nature, from the more than human world. So in a way, all of us are in trouble.
No, we're not doom scrolling or whatever.
doomed. But also, all of us have the potential and the opportunity to, hey, stop and take a look. What's going on? And we're saying there are very simple ways, but very profound practices that you can do to help reverse that and to help, to bring you home, basically. Yeah.
I love that you said to bring us home. Thank you for sharing that, Amanda. And one thing that did struck a chord with me was about the relationship with Mother Nature and how that's built through the guiding. My hope is that a relationship is either rekindled or a relationship with Mother Nature is started. Because I deeply believe that if people can change their perception and relationship with Mother Nature, the more people we can help to change that perception, the better this world is going to be. I had shared with you while we took this break that while I might not be a climate scientist, a climate activist, I feel that my contribution to helping save Mother Earth is doing this, and I feel deeply how important that is for me to do. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for training guides to hopefully come to that same conclusion.
Yeah.
Or at least that was it for me.
Yeah. I definitely believe if everyone is a forest bather, the world will be very peaceful.
A common thing that I get when I'm guiding people is this belief that hiking is the same thing. And while I am also an avid hiker and I love spending time with nature through hiking, there is, to me, a very big difference, but it's hard for people to see it at first. So if you don't mind sharing how you feel like hiking and forest therapy, forest bathing is different.
Yeah. I guess to answer that question, I can share a quick story.
Sure.
And that was way before I learned about forest therapy. Like you, I'm also I have a love of hiking. And there was a time when I really, really go after big adventures. So I
Oh,
did like climbing, mountain climbing,
wow.
went to like ice cap mountains, went to like Kilimanjaro and doing,
Uh-huh.
all sorts of like multi-day hikes. And on a lot of those hikes, I mean, don't get me wrong, I had the time of my life. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about these amazing places on earth, beautiful mountains. So I am thoroughly enjoying all those process, like all those days on the mountains. However, there's always a part of me that felt like, why can't we stay a bit longer? Why can't we
Mm,
stay longer on the mountains? We would camp at a campsite to rest for a night, and then we have to move the next
right.
day. And I often feel like, oh, it's so beautiful. The air is fresh. It's the birds are, singing. It's so nice. Why can't we just stay a bit longer? We have to pack. We have a
Mm-hmm.
schedule to follow. And then I really remember one time when we were heading downhill. The trip is about to end, and I lingered at the back of the pack because everyone, we're all walking downhill, and I really lingered at the back, and I was like, this is so beautiful. Like, I don't
Mm,
even know if my friends walking in front of me realizes how beautiful it is. I think that really for me is the difference between hiking and
mm,
forest therapy. So hiking, yes, I mean it's great for our health. It's
mm-hmm.
exercise and it takes you into nature, which is what we've been talking about a lot. But hiking also, in a way, requires you. There's a requirement. There is a requirement for you to go a certain distance,
Mm-hmm.
to hit certain point at certain time in order for you to come back down safely. And there's a demand on our physical fitness and abilities. But forest therapy for me is very different in the sense that we actually don't walk a lot. It's really about spending time in nature in a way that allows us to actually slow down,
Mm-hmm.
to come back to our senses, to open our senses, and
Right.
to open our hearts as well. And in order for that to happen, it's very hard when we are constantly moving and when we hike. We really need to come to a place of relative stillness. Like we need to just calm down, maybe sit
Mm-hmm.
down, maybe spend like a few hours, sometimes at the same spot. And then allowing nature to actually reveal herself as the therapist, right? You need time. You can't just sit down for 5 minutes. Okay, come on, show me your magic.
Time is ticking.
Mother Nature is not busking. So we need to just calm ourselves down so that we can actually notice and receive. So
Mm,
it's much slower than hiking. It's more I don't want to use the word passive because it's not passive, but it requires us to come to a place of reception. Yeah.
mm,
So whereas hiking is a lot more active, right?
yeah.
I think I would describe it that way. I mean, I feel like if I recall one of the earliest interviews I've ever done with a magazine, I described something like hiking is a sentence. If hiking is a sentence, then forest therapy is the comma in
Oh,
the middle.
I
Like
love
it's the
that.
comma that
Yeah.
asks you to pause in the middle. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not about completing that journey, completing that sentence. It's about, okay, get to this place and I stop and I pause
Mm,
and I see what's going to come up next. Yeah.
wow. I really love that. It's the comma in the sentence, and also I appreciated you saying like there's action in hiking, but there's receiving or the reception in forest therapy, and oftentimes if for those of that like to go hiking, the only time you really pause is to like, oh, I'm really tired. Let me just take a sip. Let me have a piece of my energy bar, and then off I go again. But are you noticing your field of view or like what's going on around you? I don't know. For me, I'm usually thinking about how much more time do I need to get to the next point, or I'm thinking about, okay, If sundown's coming, like I need to hurry up, you know. But it's never necessarily about enjoying just what's around me, the present moment. So yeah, I often like to talk about the difference of hiking and forest therapy, as like hiking is doing, forest therapy is just being. Yeah.
And I want to also just bring it, sorry. Also want to just bring in a footnote there. I think hiking, if done in a more intentional way, like in a slow walk, it can also be a kind of forest therapy, because it also brings us into a place of noticing, of slowing down, of receptivity. So maybe the biggest difference is not so much about the activity itself, but more about the state of being. Like, how are we showing up for this thing that we're doing? So, yeah, I mean, I can't deny that if someone is walking intentionally, slowly, with their senses open, and you call that a hike, that might also be forest therapy.
Yeah, I think that could happen. There's
Yeah.
probably a lot of people that do it that way versus just, you know, if you're going on Kilimanjaro, you probably have an itinerary every
You
single
don't want to
day.
just spend a whole month going out.
And I think you've touched on a lot of really important things that I would now like to kind of address. But first of all, I do want to share how much I do resonate with a lot of things that you shared. And I do appreciate you sharing your journey to becoming a forest therapy guide and your own healing journey. And it kind of makes my heart happy that we are all here uh, avid hikers and nature lovers and have our own personal relationship with nature as well. And I totally agree with, because I before I met Jerome, I also go around the world just to hike, and I would do multi-day hikes. But I don't like to do it with others. I like to do it myself because I don't want to follow a schedule, and I want to be able to stop whenever I want to stop. And I think in my own experience of being with nature, I a quote that really resonates me was, and I have to paraphrase because I don't exactly remember what it is, but you go into the mountain to lose yourself and find your soul, and that's where my relationship with nature really began. Is the more that I went into nature, the more that I was, not only with nature but with myself, that I was able to find myself and reconnect with myself, like you said. And yes, there are times when I needed to go there to find my cool, or to give myself perspective of life, because life has just gone berserk, and whether it's just really stressful times, or whether just or whether it's that I've gone to a really low place in life that I really need to find myself, find a way out for myself, or just a time where I just wanted to be still with myself so that I can look in, and because there's a profound sense of peace that you can find when you are in touch with yourself, and also this sense of groundedness, that you don't need to look for reassurance or self-worth, or just something that makes your heart feel still, or feel like I'm okay, without looking outwards. Like, there's a lot of treasures within us, only if we would just stop and look. Uh, and it's so important what you said earlier about you don't have to be clinically diagnosed with any illness to kind of go search for healing in nature. And similarly, we were talking in our previous episodes that you don't need to be broken or having like serious problems to go to therapy, as many would think. And another thing that you talked about, like when we don't come into therapy or find healing with the mindset of, oh, because I am sick or I'm broken or I'm ill, there's something seriously wrong with me, you tap into this curiosity or exploration about the existential self, existential questions about life, or your own purpose in life, or where, like you were asking, well, you were sharing earlier on about your journey to developing that relationship with nature is, at a point where you were trying to find which direction you want to head in life.
Yeah.
And this is the thing in this metropolitan city that we live in, Hong Kong, such a fast-paced city. Not only do we find it hard sometimes to stop, but a lot of people, if not all people in this city, find it very hard to stop and to pause. And not only that, not being able to, I think when they're able to stop, or they tend to find other things to stop themselves busy from one thing and just busy with another thing. Like to stop themselves from thinking about work, they occupy themselves with something else.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a diversion. It's just a distraction. But to really stop and kind of go inside, I feel has been, it's not that people have not heard about it, but I feel that people just don't have this ability to stop anymore. And a lot of mental health issues come from that, or stem from that. That inability to stop. And Hong Kong is also a very trendy place, as they, like, where do they go?
Chase trends.
Yeah, they chase trends. They chase whatever that is the most up on TV, or artists, like talk about, or what they see in media, social media. Actually, as a matter of fact, the world is so like involved in social media that they're always looking for new things, new things, new things. And from what I'm hearing is that forest therapy is not, or bringing ourselves back to the forest, to back to ourselves, is not chasing after the trend. It's not like, chasing after something that is new. So in us introducing this, I guess, philosophy, or this concept, this idea of going back to the self and finding health and well-being from within, and our connection with nature and other beings, how receptive have you found Hong Kong to be of forest therapy and relationship with nature, relationship with ourselves?
I think that you put it very beautifully, in the sense that, yeah, Hong Kong, fast paced, chasing after trends, and there are things that might just explode in popularity. And then 2 years later, you don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's a sign that, we actually are very receptive, that we are very sensitive to all the different ways that we can use, or all the different things that we can do to maybe distract ourselves, but also to potentially help ourselves. And for me, yeah, there are many people who come to this point of finally, I guess, if I can say it that way, take responsibility for our own health and well-being after hitting a wall, right? After maybe like a critical illness, even myself included, right? So I had, it kind of took me cancer for me to realize, oh my God, there's a different way to relating to nature. And I know so many other people who have been through really tough times, And that became kind of their initiation, that became their turning point into finally seeing things from a different angle and really acknowledging and admitting maybe even that their lives have been lived in a way that is not good for them, right? So what I guess we're trying to do, right? All the people who are trying to do any kind of therapy, what we really want to happen, what we really want to see is for people to not need to hit that wall, to just regularly clear those clogged drains before they became burst pipes, right? So we live in a world that there's a lot of pain and suffering, right? There's a lot of people going through unbelievable, trauma. And one way or another, even though we're not the person who experienced the trauma itself, one way or another, we have pain, we have, sadness, we have all sorts of emotions, we have grief, right?
Yeah.
All of that. We can't run away from it. There's something in us, right?
Absolutely.
That actually needs to be addressed and looked at.
Absolutely.
And I guess what we do, the more we put, these stories, these podcasts, right, and the work that we do out there, hopefully what happens is that people pick up those signs earlier, that you notice, wait, hold on, there's something just doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is, but maybe I can go see a music therapist, or maybe I can go for a walk with Jerome. And then maybe in those, even no matter how long or short, right, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hour, a whole day, or multi-day, but somehow in those moments of maybe more quiet, maybe more support, right, from the therapist or from the group, that I came to a point of knowing, I think I have an idea what this is about. And then I can go and find ways to address that. So, because all these troubles that we face, right, that ultimately end up in a diagnosis, there's a process that it goes through. It does not become a diagnosis in
Overnight.
day one, right? Overnight. So that whole process of, things aren't going right, but I kind of just ignore. I get distracted. I go on social media. I do all these other things to run away, to not see that problem, right? And it builds up. Hopefully what we do is we make it easier. We make it easier for people to actually, periodically, we're not saying every day sit down and do your self-reflection, right? It's not that kind of it's not like that. Almost feels like some kind of a punishment. But we're not saying that. It's not that hard, actually. And it actually can be fun, right? So going on a forest therapy walk with Jerome, it actually can be fun, but also that process might reveal something about ourselves, might reveal some maybe more hidden issues that we have not come to realize in our daily busyness. So for me, it's that kind of a, it's a gift, right? That's kind of a journey of just opening a little bit, right? Opening the lid a little bit once in a while to let out the steam, right? And then so that it doesn't end up in a big explosion. And these little, picking up the lid and smelling it a little bit. These it could be fun, it could be fun because it hasn't become that foul smell yet. Right? It could still be like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that is. So, yeah, I mean, so I think it's not a bad thing to see, so many people, advertising or promoting on social media all kinds of different therapies, right? I don't think it's a bad thing because ultimately there's something that's going to be of interest to people that might ultimately bring them to a point of, okay, there's something that I have been, turning a blind eye to, that I'm avoiding. And what I do is forest therapy because I love nature, right? Because that's my joy. And that's my service, right? That's what I offer to the world. And then there are other therapists doing different things, music or art. And I think that's beautiful. And hopefully, I guess that monkey mind of Hong Kong people, where they jump from one thing to another,
Yes.
I feel like we're just actually constantly searching. And what my hope is in the process of jumping from one thing to another, ultimately they might land with something that actually works for them. So it might not be good for us in terms of running a business because we actually want more people to come and keep them, right? But if, I really believe in just being being in the therapy world, if I can, call it that, very general, loosely. Ultimately, that's what we want.
Yeah.
Right? We want to see people finding a way that actually helps them, that actually works. Then maybe that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I totally agree that I hope the monkey, what you said, the monkey
mind.
jump
Mind.
or
Monkey,
the
yeah,
monkey
monkey
Monkey mind.
monkey dance. I definitely agree. I hope that I do hope that in people's search for what really works and what fits for them, that they would continue to search until they find something that works for them, and
Yeah.
and know that and know that it's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also in that monkey jump process, it's also, I guess, the playing field where they get to try a lot of different things, and if that happens before anything hits them, then if unfortunately something does hit, right, God knows what it is, maybe the death of a family member, which I guess none of us can avoid, right, ultimately, then by that time they might remember that at some point in the past I've done that and I had fun. Maybe now that I really don't feel well, I'm in grief, maybe I'll go back and give that a try again and see if it's going to help me now, right? So that's I guess the hope. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly, certainly, especially in a city. Not only is the city a fast-paced one, but because of its fast-pacedness, people are always looking for quick fixes, and not very often are they in something to look for a process or understand and feel like they can afford to spend the time, to go through a process. And so, as you said, I really hope that as they begin to find something that works for them, that they would be able to engage in a process, to understand that self-work is a process, that there's no quick fixes, or there's no shortcuts to inner self-work. Yeah. So I guess coming to this point of our podcast, I think we've covered a lot, and for our audience, it's probably a lot to take in as well. So to wrap this time up, I would like to kind of, for our audience, to take a moment to kind of I don't want to use take advantage, but hear from your wisdom. Yeah. What are some resources or books or ways in which you have found that's been really helpful that you can offer to our listeners in your journey of healing?
So if I have to come up with a book, it would definitely be, my teacher, right? Amos's book, Your Guide to Forest Bathing. It's
Plug.
hey? Plug.
Plug. Are you
Plug.
plugging Amos?
I love this book for the fact that it's very simple. It's not a big heavy book. It's the kind of book that you can take with you in your backpack as you walk into the woods. And when you find a moment of, oh, I remember there's this book in my backpack, you put it down, take out that book and just flip it open, and you might come across invitations that you can actually just try, right? Right there and then. It's that kind of a book. And there's also Amos's writing around, I guess, his wisdom, his musings on how this practice came about. So it's a very easy read. So I would recommend that definitely. The other book that comes to mind now, actually, it surprises me that that's the book that comes to mind, is a book by Sharon Blackie called If Women Rose Rooted. So I would recommend all women to read it. But if men are interested, you're very welcome to read it too. But it's a book that talks about myths, actually. It talks a lot about how the land just holds a lot of wisdom and a lot of imageries and metaphors for women, like for women in different stages of our lives, and how do we reclaim, like, because it's called Women Rose Rooted, right? How do we kind of reclaim our voice in a world that is very masculine, that is very driven towards almost like a mechanistic or mechanical way of operating, you know, very, very robotic and very much about numbers and, you know, hitting certain goals and measurements and all that. But how can we actually move back to a place where we find our roots and our belonging back in nature? Especially for women. So that is a book that is a bigger book. I probably may not bring it into the forest with me, but I think it really inspired me along the way. I read it when I was, I think maybe when I was a very fresh guide, a fresh forest therapy guide, and that really helped me it informed a lot about my relationship with the land. So that's another book that I would recommend.
Hey.
Take note of that. That's very beautiful. Now, on to the second question. From our conversation, what do you think would be your takeaway from our time together today?
I think there's a reflection around how hard it is actually for us to stop, right? Because you were talking about that, and I felt like you spoke about it very beautifully. And I guess I have like a rebellious side to me that that is hard, and that means that's exactly also something that I want to address. Yes, it's hard to stop. Yes, it's hard to put down my phone. Yes, I'm glued to the social media. And I say that about myself too, because a lot of my friends and, you know, all of the, even news nowadays, right? It's like faster on the social media than on the actual news channel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how do we break that cycle? I mean, that's something that I want to also bring home and reflect on, because I don't have an answer. I mean, I have an offering, you know, we have a service of guiding people into the forest, forest therapy experiences. But that cannot be the only answer as well. Like, that is definitely one answer and one way to lead us to kind of restoring that balance. But that cannot be the only thing, because if that is the only thing, then we would have solved that problem already. Right? So how do we actually make, I guess, even better use of the methods and the tools that we already have? Is it going even more digital because everyone is having an app right now, right? Or
in the age of AI.
yeah, or is it? I've been reading recently that, you know, the younger generations are now actually reversing and ditching social media and reversing back to like in-person experiences. I wish that is, you know, I hope that's gonna take over.
Yes. Yes.
But I can totally see how that is possible, because ultimately, sooner or later, we're gonna get sick of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are already getting sick.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, how do we take advantage of that?
Thank you. On to the next. If you are to describe mental health in 3 words, what would it be?
Wow, that's a big question. Did your previous guest get this question too?
Some of
Yes.
them said in 2 words or like 5 words, you know. You know?
So some people said be authentic. So that's 2 words, but we
Okay,
said we'll let it go.
I think I'm gonna be greedy. I'm gonna offer 3 words, but there are 3 words that that's I guess part of the cycle. So I'm gonna say give, receive, and love. So give, of course. I mean, we're here walking this earth. We aren't anything if we're not giving something, right? Whether it's giving, and of course it's you can give money, but also just giving ourselves, right?
Yes.
And giving our time, our energy, our service for a purpose, right? So, and oftentimes, I mean, I hear so many times that when people actually give service, whether it's by volunteering or whether it's part of your work, helping people, that sense of purpose
Yeah.
is a big part of our well-being,
Yeah.
right? Because it gives us meaning.
Yeah.
It gives this like being in this crazy world
Yeah.
a reason. You know, why are we here, right?
Yeah.
So give,
Yeah.
and then receive, because I feel like those people who give, especially those people who give, often don't allow themselves to receive. And again, I'm also
Yeah.
talking about myself a little bit here. And I have a lot of big-hearted people in my friendship circles, and I always see them giving so much and helping other people, and in so many different ways. And when it comes to themselves asking for help, it's like the hardest thing ever. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I often realize I have no idea this friend actually need help,
Yeah.
because he or she does not say anything about
Right.
it
Yeah.
until so much later.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we all need to be better at receiving,
Yeah.
asking for help.
Yeah.
And if the term asking for help doesn't work, like I'm like, yes, it's just so hard. I don't even want to think about it. It's just, a matter of giving an opportunity for your friends to give, right?
Yeah. Because they will.
Yeah,
They
and they
will.
want to. And again,
Yes.
when you give that opportunity, and you're giving, you're allowing the other person to find
Yeah.
purpose, right? You're allowing the other person to give. And that's why I feel like my second word is receive, because it's part of it's the cycle of giving and receiving. And
Yeah.
that's actually also part of a very important concept in the forest therapy world is reciprocity. Like, we're not just receiving from nature, we're also giving something
Yep.
back. So and nature is not just giving, nature can also receive our love, right? So
Yeah.
it's like a two-way street, right? So
Absolutely.
give and receive. And of course, love. I mean, I've heard so much about the worst pandemic in the world right now is that of loneliness, right? And it's so easy to feel lonely when we're all just glued to the phone. I mean, you take the empty hour and how many people
Yep.
talk to each other. Most of us are on our own phones and doing, all kinds of things. And we sometimes, I think that triggers the part within us, maybe in our nervous system. It's almost like tricking us into believing that we are connecting,
Yeah.
that we are building relationships. But I feel like we've seen so many times where maybe I've been speaking to this person online, and when we actually meet in person, the connection is not there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like I know this person
Yeah.
until the moment when I actually have a shared experience. Maybe we sit down for a meal, then it starts to feel a bit more real. But if it's all happening online, of course we're going to feel lonely.
Yeah.
And for me, the antidote or the solution to that loneliness is love. And one thing that I receive the most from the forest is unconditional love. Because
Yeah.
nature, Mother Nature, the forest, the land, the ocean, it never judges you, right? It never
Yes.
expects anything from you. It receives you and accepts you just as you are. It has no idea who you are, basically, right? And it doesn't matter, right? The trees and the birds, they're equally present to all of us, and they respond to how we show up. So if we have love in our heart, if we cultivate love in our heart, and we show up with that love in our heart, I think the world will treat us differently, each of us.
Yeah.
And it will bounce off, right? It will bounce off each person,
Yeah.
and it will get multiplied. So I think
Yes.
it's that practice of cultivating love in our hearts. And I know that for a lot of us, it's not the easiest thing. For me as well, I think I definitely find it easier when I'm in the forest, when I'm not actually in the presence of other people,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of stuff that we need to work through. Like I have a lot of self-judgment, I have a lot of self-doubt. Sometimes when I am in a room with a stranger, I actually feel more stressed.
Yeah.
Then where do I begin, right? And for me, I really feel like, okay, if talking to another person actually makes me feel more stressed, then one option, which is always there, is maybe go for a walk, go for a walk and maybe just, sit by a tree and just take some breaths and see how you feel. And maybe you would come out differently, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's like small steps towards building and collecting and cultivating that feeling of love and belonging in our hearts.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. So these are the 3 words: give, receive, and love.
Thank you. These are definitely small nuggets of wisdom, which
Oh,
we
yeah.
really hope that through this podcast, these messages will really go out to the world. Both Jerome and I really resonate with all these things that you've been sharing with us, because we also believe that when we work on ourselves, when we cultivate all these things that you mentioned within ourselves, that's the only way that we can share it with the world. It's kind of like before, in order to be able to give love, you got to first love yourself.
Yep.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
so all the work starts from us, starts right here. And our vision is that we hope that we can, through what we do, make this world a kinder place. And
And if
yeah.
I can add one more thing, you've talked about working on ourselves a couple of times. And also you mentioned very rightly that sometimes working on ourselves is hard, right? And
Yeah.
people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
My personal experience, which is a very quick message, is that, when I first started working on myself, it was not nice. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of stuff that I don't even want to feel.
Right.
But I've been working on myself for a while now. I can say that there will be a point where you work through the grief and you will hit the joy.
Yes.
And when you get to that point, that joy feels very grounding. It's not that kind of euphoric joy. It's not the joy in the Inside Out movie. It's not that. It's a kind of joy that is like, I feel like I can open my heart
Yeah.
and I can sense joy inside, right? So it will get to that point. It will, if you keep going, right?
Yeah.
But there, you might have to go through some
Oh, yeah.
some bits.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, that's why there are people who are
Right.
here to help, right?
Yeah.
And if you keep going, if you just trust, and you get to that point of joy, the world that you live in, because it all comes from within, right, is going to be totally different. So, yeah.
Definitely. It's the joy that comes also from inner alignment.
Yeah.
When you feel like you can, not only are you in touch with yourself, but you can be yourself, like inside out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really a sense of peace and groundingness that is from within as well.
Yeah.
And through that, like you said, we really hope that the world will become a kinder and a nicer place to live in, starting from ourselves.
Yeah.
Would you have an invitation to offer to people who might be suffering right now?
Invitation.
Yes.
As in like a forest therapy invitation? Can be. I have this image of someone who's like a baby, right? So I imagine when I tune into the feeling of suffering, the image that came to mind is like a fetus, like someone in a fetal position, right? Curling up and, you know, protecting themselves. And, you know, because life is hard, I don't want to actually, you know, look at things. I just want to curl up and rest and avoid, and, you know, I don't want to see anything. And I think something that really adds to the suffering is to not accept that I'm suffering. To not allow myself to be sad, right? That's even worse.
Yes.
So for anyone who's suffering, I would invite you to, if there is a place in nature that you know well, that maybe you feel safe there. It doesn't have to be like a wilderness or a country park. It can also just be somewhere close to your home. I'd invite you to maybe just go there and allow yourself to curl up. Just curl up, whether, you know, leaning against a tree, or, you know, just if you feel good about just, you know, curling up and lying on the ground.
Yeah.
And just allowing yourself to receive some support from the ground, from gravity, from maybe from a tree that you're you know, you're with. I don't know, maybe like rocks, like big rocks are very grounding.
Yeah.
And because rocks are ancient beings, right? They've been
Yeah.
here for billions of years. They're very solid and steady.
Yeah.
You know, you know, in my mind already, I have images of like big rocks by the beach, right? Those are the places that I felt like really gave me a sense of like mother caressing a baby.
Yeah.
So if there is a place that you can think of, and you have, you know, of course you have some time, go and just curl up and, you know, and receive, and allow yourself to rest and receive. So I think that might feel, that might offer some comfort.
Yeah.
I can already feel my heart like gravitating towards my tree. Thank you, Amanda. I do have one last question. You might be familiar with this one. Is there anything that you'd like to say or do that would make your experience today feel complete?
I laugh because that's like a prompt that we give in our
Exactly.
therapy walks. I want to echo back to the original, right at the beginning, the intention that we set. I guess to feel complete, I really hope that, you know, there's something in this podcast that has touched you, if you're watching or listening, and that you carry that with you and find a way to pass it on to the next person, and to share, right? Whether it's sharing this podcast, of course, that would be great, or sharing the nugget, right, from this podcast that you felt like touched you, or has supported you, or you resonated with in some ways, and share that with a friend, with someone you know. That I think would be a really beautiful gift. So I'm sharing this hope to feel complete.
Thank you. Well, I think this, did you have another question? This concludes our time and liminality. So let us bring us back to the present. We can all just prepare our bodies to listen to the sound of this instrument. Super big mahalo and aloha to you, Amanda, for coming on to our podcast today to
Thank
share
you.
your journey,
Thank you for
your
having me.
insights and wisdom. If anybody would like to get to know more about you and your practice, what you do, how could they reach you?
So I am, you know, having spoken so much about social media, I am on social media. I am on Instagram and Facebook. And you can find me at Shinrin Yoku HK. So Shinrin Yoku is the Japanese term for forest bathing. And in Cantonese is Hong Kong Sam Lam Yok.
Okay. There was something else that I wanted to say, but I'm forgetting. again. But I'll just say that next month is going to be May, and we're going to be doing a special episode on women's health, women's mental health. It's Women's Health Month, I believe, or Women's Mental Health Month in May. So we'll be doing something on that. Please stay tuned. Other than that, again, big thank you to Amanda for being our special guest today.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Take care. Sharing a light, and aloha.
Hi.
Aloha, dear friends. We got a very exciting May coming up. We have a podcast that has to do with women's health. We've got a panel of very dynamic women to come here and talk about it. So please check that out. We also have Sacred Space Therapy and Wellness's 1 year anniversary. We're very excited. We're going to have something very special planned. So please check out this QR code. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast. As always, big hugs and sharing light and aloha.